Oh, Super Bowl 60. We are just days away from this rematch of the Super Bowl from that 2014 season that we've been talking about oh so much. This is the first Super Bowl matchup ever between quarterbacks, so Darnold and May, and head coaches, Vrabel and McDonald, in their first or second season with that team. But the question is, how did we end up here? So our Evan Washburn and our Charles Davis, you covered games in the NFL all season long. So I got to ask you why you think these are the final two teams that we ended up with. And Charles, we're going to start with you. And we're starting with the draft and player development of both of these organizations. Walk us through why that's a key factor.
Well, I'll just start with Seattle and John Schneider. Remember, he's been the general manager there for a long time. But Pete Carroll, when he was head coach, he had the final authority over the draft and who was on the roster, et cetera. This is John Schneider's show. Ever since Pete Carroll left Seattle, and boy, has he done it quite well. Drafting these players like a Gray Zabel, who's starting at guard as a rookie out of North Dakota State, Nick Emanwari coming out of South Carolina, and after a first month of being hurt has really played at an incredibly high level, has helped redefining positions in the NFL. That goes hand in hand with he and Mike McDonald as a head coach. So John Schneider responsible for drafting, but Mike McDonald has say in that. And then Mike McDonald and staff take over with development. Same thing with Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf. Elliott Wolf doesn't have the GM title, as Evan knows. He's the de facto GM. But they work hand in hand about who's coming on the roster, what the roster needs to look like. And in their first go-round, Will Campbell, starting left tackle, coming right there with number 4 pick, and Travion Henderson, one of their top running backs. I'm just using 2 players for each group, just in terms of time. But they work hand in hand in shaping the roster, and then the coaches and their staff take over in developing these players.
Jenny, it's all about collaboration, just like CD and I collaborating on this segment. And you can talk about GM and head coach, but also head coach and his position coaches and coordinators building out of a staff. And you look at both of these teams, I think that's one of the things that's been underrated when it comes to why they're in this game. Mike Vrabel and Mike McDonald deserve a ton of credit for how they've managed the season, how they've dealt with situational football, really both defensive guys. But then you think about what they've done at the offensive coordinator position. Mike Vrabel bringing in Josh McDaniels, the ability to have arguably the best offensive coordinator and QB developer of his generation to work with Drake May, and we've seen the fruits of that labor. And then on the flip side, and I think one of the things that really ignited Seattle this season was Mike McDonald looking back after last season and saying, look, I got to make a change. Year one, I just kind of took what was given to me, maybe made some decisions that a first-year head coach would make in terms of picking out his staff, but specifically that play caller and offensive coordinator, and pivoting to Clint Kubiak and then bringing in Sam Darnold along with John Schneider as your GM. And then you see what's happened there. And now Clint Kubiak looks like he's going to be the Raiders head coach. But the decisions in building out a staff are often under-described, under-reported when it comes to the teams that make their way to this final game of the season. And you could go even deeper into some of the positional coaches that both of these teams have that have really elevated what I would say in some cases are average groups based off of maximizing the abilities of all the players.
Maximizing talent, that is certainly key. Our next topic, and I'm not going to lie, I had to look up exactly what this one means. So fortune favors the bold. So it's a proverb suggesting that taking risks and acting with courage brings success and luck. Is that correct, Charles?
It certainly is. And Jenny, before I get there, I just want to illuminate something that Evan talked about to exemplify what he's talking about with staff. Think about this with New England. Terrell Williams was hired to be the defensive coordinator. Unfortunately, ill, cancer, can't coach for the season. So Evan talks about you build out your staff, you develop it all the way through. Zach Kuhr, who was coaching linebackers for them, steps in as the interim defensive coordinator and calls plays all year long on a team that's in the Super Bowl. I think Evan nailed it really well. Now, back to fortune favors the bold. How about John Schneider and crew? Acquisitions of wide receivers. Cooper Kupp coming from the Rams. A lot of people said, don't get Cooper Kupp. You're hearing all this discussion about the Rams thought maybe he was done, and maybe you shouldn't get him. There was even conversation that New England kind of kicked the tires on it and decided no. How big an acquisition was that because not just the numbers, but what he brought to the room each and every day, what he brought to the offense, what he brought to the team. He's beating the quarterbacks to the facilities. He sits in on quarterback meetings. He is a big part of what that team puts together. and they follow his leadership. Second part was during the season, getting Rashid Shaheed from New Orleans, an extra deep threat for Sam Darnold, big-time kick returner who has brought back punts and kickoffs for touchdowns. For New England, all their free agent moves in the offseason, huge, spent the most money in the league on free agents, and boy, if they hit on it. Two big ones, Stephon Diggs. A lot of people said, you got to be careful with Diggs. Everywhere he goes, he wears out his welcome fast. Well, they're happy he's wearing out his welcome. 1,000-yard season, 4 touchdowns. He's been a mainstay for them at wide receiver. And on the flip side, there's Milton Williams. Last seen in the Super Bowl for Philadelphia, getting 2 sacks. But he wasn't playing a whole lot. He was playing like 30% of the plays. Could he stand up to full-time play? He had an injury during the year. He's come back and has been a wrecking force up front. They've hit on their free agent acquisitions. Seattle making their big-time moves. Fortune does favor the bold, Evan.
No doubt, and I love how you lay out kind of the roster development. The one added layer to it when it comes to New England that I think is a bold move defensively. Yeah, Milton Williams, kind of the anchor, and maybe underrated or underknown coming out of Philadelphia. They offer him $100+ million. People kind of get that sticker shock, but it's been worth it. But I like how Vrabes and the rest of that defensive staff have kind of built the identity of that unit that has really been the driving force to getting them to this Super Bowl in terms of these playoff wins. It's a lot of guys that were cast-offs, that were maybe thought of as backups, reserves. Even Robert Spillane, who Vrabel cut multiple times in Tennessee, is their big prize free agent in the offseason. But even Christian Ellis, some of the other guys that have made big plays for this defense, not household names. But the other aspect of this sort of bold theme, to me, is the teams taking on the authenticity of both head coaches. And I think people have really gotten to understand the way Mike Vrabel does things. He's become a social media darling based off of his way of handling post-game or shaking everybody's hand as they come into the locker room, all those things that he's done going back to Tennessee. Really, it's just funny how it's now become a thing. But I think Mike Macdonald's a personality that people maybe are getting a better idea of. Charles and I have known him back to his Baltimore days. He's reserved, but he's got such a comfort in his own skin, and I think his players respond to it. So I think that's kind of the new wave in coaching. It's not just the scheme, it's the authenticity of being exactly who you are. You don't have to imitate a Bill Belichick or a Bill Cowher or a John Madden or some of these other big-time names in the coaching game. Be yourself and your players will follow.
Be yourself and your players will follow. And, of course, with that, you need a fearless leader. You talked just about the coaches there, Evan. Charles, I'd like for you to touch upon just the coaches and why that is so key with these two teams.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up. Evan laid it out perfectly about both of them. Let's start with Mike Macdonald. I think by now everyone's seen the video of his first meeting with the Seattle Seahawks where he told them to envision what it was going to be like in their stadium when they were hosting the NFC Championship game. Within 2 seasons, that happened. I think we used the word manifest. I think we've taken it to new levels, right? And Mike Macdonald has done that. And then after they beat San Francisco, I believe, or and went on, or beat the Rams, they were saying, wow, you had to go through San Francisco and the Rams. Was that a challenge? Did you worry about that? You remember his great answer? We did not care. Boom. There you got it. That's what Evan's talking about with that leadership. Go to Mike Vrabel. He gets to New England, back-to-back 4 and 13 seasons under 2 different head coaches. He's the 3rd head coach in 3 seasons for New England. And early in camp, he has them practice victory formation. Get used to it, guys. We're going to be doing this a lot. They brought it back for the playoffs. This guy has shown all the things Evan talked about with the players. Remember, Ramondre Stevenson had the fumbling problem early. People wanted him to cut him. He ends up carrying the ball 20-plus times in the championship game, never loses it once. Both of them fearless. Both of them leading from the front. Both of them authentic, as Evan talked about. And both of them showing their teams there's no room for fear around here, guys. We're going to be just fine.
I feel motivated. I don't know about you guys. All right, don't go anywhere. We got much more coming from the two of you as well as we take a look at Super Bowl matchups. This is just incredible to see in 2025, both 10-plus points per game differential in the regular season. This is the only Super Bowl since 1970. That's when the NFL and AFL merger went on. Both teams were ranked top 4 in the regular season in scoring offense and scoring defense. It is bound to be a great game.